Chapter 2. There can only be one queen, says the woman who is supposedly an advocate for democracy. Chapter 2.1. The cancellation of the reality show The Bronze Age Fools. Metatron walked into Keila's room and studied her as she was wearing a traditional Bronze Age style Edenite dress. Not an expensive looking one, but the type that one buys before attending a Comic-Con or a peasant's Renaissance fair. After studying her for a while, he realized that he was acting a bit creepy and decided to talk. Metatron said, "You look beautiful today, Mistress Keila. Are you going to a Renaissance fair?" Keila said, "No, today is the day I am announcing myself to the Edenites as their new queen, and as such I want to dress like one of them." Metatron said, "I see. Why are you dressing up like a female mage from Dungeons and Dragons then?" Keila said, "Because that is how people were dressed during the Bronze Age." Metatron said, No they weren't. You do realize the Bronze Age was a real time period and that magic and dragons never existed." Keila said, "Don't be silly, Metatron. Of course, dragons and magic existed in the past. I have seen it many times on TV. Anyways, I like this outfit and I'm the boss, so I will wear it." Metatron said, "Fair call. But wouldn't your announcement to the Edenites defeat the purpose of faking your death? After all, Eden is the setting for the most viewed reality TV show in the entire solar system." Keila said, "Oh, the Bronze Age Fools is actually set on Eden? I thought it was a fake studio production." Metatron said, "Wait a second. You were a high-ranking leader of the Martian Humanist Alliance, the faction that sold the pirated rights of the Bronze Age Fools. And you don't even know anything about the show?" Keila said, "That's correct. I don't bore myself with insignificant details such as finances and knowing silly stuff. I'm all about action." Metatron sighed and Keila continued speaking. She said, "But you're right, Metatron. I can't be featured on the Bronze Age Fools now that I'm dead. That would be a terrible plot hole. I suggest that we cancel the show and that we blame Bjorn Muller for the cancellation." Metatron said, "How about we just keep the show going and then live the high life with all the money we'll make?" Keila said, "You do realize that I'm dead, right? How am I supposed to live the high life on different resorts when I'm supposedly dead? Have you heard about facial recognition and DNA recognition?" Metatron said, "Yes, I have heard about the technology. We even have it on this space station." "Oh well, let's do things your way." Keila said, "Great, much appreciated. Besides, I have found my calling in life, to make Bjorn's life miserable and free my people from the Terran oppression. I will do whatever it takes to achieve these goals. I would even release an ancient evil demon queen and her army of man-eating aliens if it was necessary." Metatron said, "Whoa! Releasing demon queens and man-eating aliens is the most far-fetched war strategy I have ever heard. I hope you have a better plan for winning the war." Keila said, That was my main plan, but I'm sure I can come up with something else if you insist. Anyways, you got work to do. Cancel the show and write the press release blaming Bjorn Muller for the cancellation. Chop chop. Metatron said nothing and left the room. He regretted helping Keila to leadership, as she was as irrational and outright stupid as his former boss, Abraham. Cancelling the highest grossing TV show ever and hoping to beat the exceedingly powerful government using demons and man-eating aliens. The ideas were so foolish, so they would have fit perfectly for the Bronze Age fools. Metatron realized that he had himself to blame for what had happened. He had chosen to elevate a clearly mentally unstable woman to power just because she was hot. And he wanted to have sex with her. Now, he was stuck with her idiocies, and what was worse was that the sex hadn't even happened. Resigned to his fate, Metatron deactivated all the cameras on Eden and started writing on the requested press release. Chapter 2.2 The Bronze Age Fools cancelled due to actions of Rear Admiral Bjorn Muller. Metatron was eyeing through the press release he had written to explain the cancellation of the Bronze Age Fools. He wasn't that happy with the release, as Keila had insisted that she described in a flattering manner, while Bjorn Muller was given all the blame for the cancellation. The Bronze Age Fools cancelled indefinitely due to the actions of Rear Admiral Bjorn Muller. For the last 60 years, we have been proudly broadcasting the reality show called The Bronze Age Fools to entertain the masses of the solar system. Unfortunately, this era has come to an end due to death of the show's feature artist, the despotic God King Abraham Goldstein. The beautiful and inspiring freedom fighter Keila Eisenstein was just doing her own things, inspiring the Martians to overthrow their oppressors, when the old, ugly and impotent Bjorn Muller and his ship started pursuing her. The pursuit took them to Eden, where Bjorn shot down Keila's ship, killing its innocent crew. Keila narrowly escaped death, but in the chaos that was caused by Bjorn's efforts, Abraham Goldstein died. Keila Eisenstein also died in an explosion when she risked her life trying to save the show and its cast members from Bjorn's indiscriminate violence. We honor Keila's efforts for the solar system, and we will always remember her as the beautiful, compassionate, inspiring and wise beyond her years. As for Bjorn, we will always remember him as the fuckwit that caused the cancellation of our show. And we urge all our fans to express their anger towards Bjorn and his crew. Best regards, Jack Silver, also known as Metatron. Chapter 2.3 Not exactly a popular queen. Keila admired herself in the mirror, dressed in anachronistic fantasy or costume play dress that she insisted was a genuine Bronze Age design. Today, she was going to announce herself as Eden's liberator from the villain Abraham, as well as the queen of the colony. She had initially planned to walk down among the Edenites, but Metatron convinced her that might not be the best choice. Instead, Keila flew down towards Eden in a shuttle and was standing on a floating platform, accompanied by the angels, supposedly out of range from the Edenites' primitive weapons. Keila studied the anticipating crowds below her and eventually decided to speak. Static, run out, speaker issues, buzz buzz. She turned off her microphone and gave Metatron an angry look. He excused himself and changed the setting for the built-in AV system on Eden. Keila tried speaking again. She said, "Dear people of Eden, I am Keila Eisenstein from the Martian Humanist Alliance, and I have good and bad news. The bad news is that you have followed a false god your whole lives, as it is actually the year 2872, and not year EDN 62, which stands for Edenite year 62, as you know it. Earth and Mars are still around, by the way. The good news is that Abraham is now dead, so you no longer need to fear his dementia-induced hissy fits. Instead, you will be led by my just and fair hand." Elder Gil shouted from below, but Keila could not hear him, so instead she sent down a microphone with a drone. Elder Gil spoke. He said, "Oh, we already know all of that. I have a more important question. When are we getting paid?" Keila looked at Gil in disbelief. She had just proclaimed great life-changing news for all of them, and he wondered when the pay date was. Why was she supposed to pay him, by the way? It made no sense, but she asked out of politeness anyways. Keila said, "I'm sorry, Gil, but I don't understand. Why am I supposed to pay you?" Elder Gil said, "Oh, because your faction, the Martian Humanist Alliance, filmed and broadcasted our lives for over 60 years in a reality show, but we never got paid." Keila said, "Oh, I see. Unfortunately, I am the sole survivor of the Martian Humanist Alliance, and I'm pretty broke." Elder Gil said, "How convenient is that? Everyone dies when it's time to pay our wages. David, use your slingshot." Upon Elder Gil's signal, one of the younger Edenites, David, who had an unexplainable supernatural talent with tribal slingshots, loaded his slingshot with a rotten egg and slung it towards Keila, hitting her straight in the face. Keila almost started crying when the rotten egg was running down her face and soiled her dress. She wanted to blast the insolent David and Elder Gil with the psionic blast from her god chip. But then she realized that her image as a benevolent liberator would take damage if she started out her reign by randomly killing people that offended her. So she tried another approach. Keila, holding back tears and wiping her face from the goop. She said, "Dear Edenites, I have come all this way to save you from the villain Abraham, and all I want in return is that you make me your queen and join me in a very dangerous rebellion against an overpowered dictatorship that oppresses our solar system. Is that really too much to ask for?" Elder Gil said, Yes, it is. But you have proven your good intentions when you didn't indiscriminately start murdering people when David hit you with a bad egg. So we let you be in charge until our true queen, Adina, comes back from her extended pilgrimage down the tunnels below Eden. Upon hearing Adina's name, Keila remembered something she had seen when playing around with the mainframe the other day. That Abraham had set all the orbital lasers to shoot at Adina before he died. Keila smiled. That was one of Abraham's commands that she didn't intend to change. Keila said, all right, people of Eden, I will agree to only be your temporary queen until Adina emerges from the tunnels below. Elder Gil, please come with me to the Divine Control Center so you can confirm to the other peasants that Yahweh and Abraham indeed are dead. Having said that, Keila and Metatron went down to the surface of Eden and picked up Elder Gil before returning to the Divine Control Center. Chapter 2.4. Adina regains her memory and decides to spy on Keila. For plot convenience, Adina's great showdown with Abraham in the first part of Divine Space Gods knocked her out and caused her to have a complete amnesia. This caused her to walk around aimlessly in the tunnels below Eden for weeks, eating psychedelic mushrooms instead of choosing the sane option, which is to try to find help on the surface. Fortunately for Adina, her seemingly irrational behavior was what had saved her from the orbital laser cannons set to fire at her. Watching Keila's speech through a small tunnel opening, Adina regained her conveniently lost memory and she remembered everything. She and her twin brother Joshua had helped Keila overthrow Abraham. With Abraham overthrown, the only rightful ruler of Eden would be Adina herself, and she could finally live out her dream. To eat a lot and then use future technology to remain skinny and with good teeth. And it seemed like even Keila agreed that Adina was the rightful queen of Eden. What a lucky day. But then Adina realized something, that Keila might have done what any politician or dictator would do, lying to the people. Using her supernatural talents with mind control, Adina tried to connect with Keila to read her mind. What she saw disappointed her greatly. As it turned out, Keila wanted to use Eden as a base of operations in her stupid war against the Terran Council. Furthermore, she was the one responsible for murdering Joshua, and she also had not deactivated the orbital lasers to kill Adina on sight. What a wretched whore. Adina managed to keep her cool. It was not a good idea to expose herself to the enemy. It was better to lay low and then psionically blast Keila out of existence when she had fallen asleep. Adina kept spying on Keila, hoping that she would go to bed soon. But then an incident occurred that made Adina lose it completely. She had to witness Keila sing in the shower. Witnessing Keila sing a Martian hip-hop uncool music hit and singing them out of tune was too much for Adina, and she screamed her lungs out in annoyance before disconnecting from Keila's mind. Chapter 2.5. Keila discussing Adina with Metatron. Keila was licking her wound that she obtained when she fell over in the shower. What an unpleasant experience it had been. Keila was just having a relaxing shower by herself, acing the latest teens music and hip-hop beats, when suddenly a very fat woman appeared out of nowhere in her sight and startled her by screaming loudly, causing her to slip and fall over. When Keila had gotten up from the floor, bloodied knee from the slip, the fat woman had disappeared out into thin air. Was this a product of her imagination, or did the mind control technology malfunction? She decided that Metatron was the one to ask about this weird incident. Metatron showed up a short while later, first aroused by seeing Keila in her bathrobe, before seeing her bloodied knee, realizing that she probably wanted help with a band-aid and not with other things. Metatron said, "Oh, Mistress Keila, your knee is bleeding. Do you need a band-aid?" Keila said, "I do actually, but that's not the reason I called you over." Metatron glimmered up momentarily, thinking that he would be the main character of the many movies he had been watching lately, getting some hot and kinky sex. That wasn't the case though, as he figured out when Keila kept talking. Keila said, "Oh, I was startled and fell over when a very fat woman appeared. She appeared to be around my age, and she wore an Edenite priestess gown. She had a blonde hair and blue eyes." Metatron said, That description fits Adina. You were right about the age thing. You are exactly the same age as the author of this book. Found it fitting for the two of you to share birthdays with him." Keila said, "Thanks for that completely irrelevant piece of trivia. Now, who is she? How could she connect to my mind? And is she a friend or a foe?" Metatron said, "She is the sister of Joshua, your ex-boyfriend, and the granddaughter to Abraham. She is connecting to people's mind through unexplainable powers. Considering that you killed her brother and then took her intended place as Eden's queen, I would say she's highly likely to be hostile to you." Keila said, "I see. Do you think she's pissed off that I killed Abraham as well?" Metatron said, "Nah, she'll be alright about that. No one liked that dickhead." Keila said, "Good. That's one less problem to worry about." Metatron said, "But she's still highly likely to be planning to kill you for what you did to her twin brother. I can stay here to protect you." Keila said, "Protect me? Against what? She's stuck down in a tunnel eating dank mushrooms while I'm here eating tasty food and living like a queen." Metatron said, "She might try to blast you with a psionic blast from the mind control technology." Keila said, "Oh, she might take control of your body trying to strangle me. To put it plainly, you are not spending the night in my room, Metatron. Chop chop, back to your room. And send me a medical bot for my knee." Metatron said, "As you command, Mistress Keila. Thy order will be done." Chapter 2.6 Adina fails miserably to psionically blast Keila, who slips and hit her head. Keila woke up with a tremor in the middle of the night. In her room was the mirage of the humongous Adina with a face as red as a tomato. Adina seemed exhausted and close to passing out. Coughing and wheezing, she spoke. Oh, why? Why can't I blast and kill you with my unexplainable magical powers? Keila said, because your magical powers are only magic to the Bronze Age peasants that live on Eden. To everyone else, you are simply a clown manipulating the mind control technology. Against clowns and hackers, there is something useful. Behold a firewall. Adina said, Firewall? I can't see any fire. Keila said, not actual fire, you moron. To explain it in your simple words, a magical shield that stops you from blasting me. Adina said, how did you know I was going to attack you? Keila said, oh, Metatron told me that you would. Adina said, oh, bummer. Well, we'll see how strong your magic is against this. Adina pushed herself to the limit, trying to sonically blast Keila. Boom! This failed miserably, and instead of hurting Keila, her attempt caused Adina to soil her pants and drop to the ground with a massive heart attack. As the exertion was too much for her fat and unfit body. Seeing that her rival to the throne of Eden seemingly managed to kill herself from her failure, Keila was overjoyed. Good things simply happen to good people. Celebrating the apparent passing of Adina, Keila started dancing a victory dance to celebrate. Unfortunately, she was not a talented dancer, so her daring dance moves caused her to slip and hit her head, knocking her unconscious. Don't act irrationally, Keila. Chapter 2.7, Keila discussing Adina with Metatron over breakfast. The morning after, Keila woke up on the floor with a terrible headache. Would she go to medical bay to have MRI to scan for brain damage? No, she had more pressing matter on hand. She was hungry and she wanted some breakfast. She headed to the lunchroom where she met Metatron. He gave her a worried look before talking. Metatron said, You don't look that well, Keila. What happened? There is a big swollen bruise on your head. Keila said, Adina caused this to happen to me. Metatron said, Oh, I'm sorry. I should have been around to protect you. Keila said, No, fuck that. I don't see how that would have helped anyway. You see, I said she caused it to happen. I didn't say she did this to me. Metatron said, What's the difference? Keila said, Well, after your warning last night, I did what anyone with a bit of sense would do. I installed a firewall protecting my mind control technology chip. When she tried to sonically blast me, nothing happened. I teased her to try again, and she tried so hard, she got a massive heart attack, killing herself in the process. Metatron said, How does that explain the big bump on the back of your head? Keila said, Well, That's because I laughed so hard from witnessing the fatty die from exertion that I fell backwards and hit my head on a bed frame. Thus, she caused my injuries, but she didn't make it happen. Metatron said, "Oh, I see. Are you sure you're not going to medical bay to check if you've got any concussions?" Keila said, "I will after breakfast." The pancakes on Tuesdays are just so delicious, too delicious to miss out. Head injury or no head injury? Metatron said, "Today is Wednesday." Keila said, "Oh, dearie me. Take me to the medical bay at once." After that, Metatron quickly carried Keila to the medical ward, where the AI robots restored her brain to prime condition in a couple of days. Chapter 2.8 Sexy Time Interrupted. A few days later, Keila had recovered from the self-inflicted concussion, and she realized something. That it had been quite some time since she got laid. This was a problem as she was forced to close all her social media accounts, including the hookup app Sunda, to maintain the illusion that she was indeed dead. Fortunately, Keila had a few thousand male subjects on Eden, and some of them were bound to be hot. But before moving on with that plan, she realized something. That she would probably damage her standing as Eden's God Queen if she started having sex with her subjects. Sex or no sex, her mission to free humanity and get revenge on Bjorn Muller was more important. But what about Metatron? He definitely had an incredibly sexy body, despite his supposedly more mature age. On the negative side, he was a complete dork, and Keila suspected him to be a mid-30s virgin, completely incapable of hitting the spot. But then the great Eureka moment hit Keila. That she could use the mind control technology to control Metatron's movements during sex, thus combining the best of two worlds. Controlled gyration and orgasm. Excited, she dressed up in her sexiest lingerie and called him over to her room. Metatron came to her room, mesmerized by what he saw. Keila decided to talk first. Keila said, "Metatron, have you found a dinner yet?" Metatron was filled with disappointment. Why was his sexy boss dressing up like that to require a status report on the dinner search? Metatron was considering whether he should tell Keila the truth, that he hadn't been looking for her, as he was sick of scouring the tunnels. He decided against it. "Not yet, Mistress Keila. The tunnels are vast and our efforts have been in vain so far." Keila said, "That's a bit disappointing. Anyways, moving on. Metatron, I require you to have sex with me. Right now." Metatron gasped, said, "But why? You have been rejecting me and teasing me for a month straight with your ridiculously hot body." Keila said, "Metatron, never question why good things happen to you. Just embrace it. But to answer your question, I teased you for fun. and I rejected you because I believe you won't be rocking the bed. Metatron said, so what made you think otherwise? Keila said, I realized that I can turn you into the best lover ever through controlling your body via the mind control technology. Metatron said, oh, wait a second, that's not how I envisioned our love to be. Doesn't that mean that I have no control whatsoever over what I want to do? Keila said, do you want sex or not? Metatron said, well, when you put it that way... Okay, take control of my body, oh my beautiful divine mistress Keila. Keila said, oh yeah. Keila tried to connect to Metatron's mind that would enable her to have the best sex of her life. Unfortunately, the connection was slow loading and a connection error prompt showed up in her mind. Error, error, Keila screams. Why can't I connect to your mind? Metatron said, it's probably because of the firewalls we installed to stop Adina from murdering us in our sleep. Keila said, good point. But Adina is dead, so let's turn off the firewalls so we can have the time of our lives. Metatron said, sure thing, boss. That sounds like a flawless plan that can't backfire. Keila said, I don't know if you're sarcastic or honest most of the time, but hey, let's do this. Keila connected to Metatron's mind and it worked better now that the firewalls were disconnected. It was now time for some sexy whoop-de-doo. 3 minutes into the sex, Adina appeared in the room as a mirage and blasted Metatron unconscious with a psionic blast. Keila gave her mirage a very angry look. Keila said, for fuck's sake, I haven't had good sex for months and now you show up to ruin it all? Adina said, I haven't had sex at all as I'm pure and saving myself for marriage. Keila said, well, that's your problem, not mine. Why did you kill Metatron, by the way? Adina said, I fucked up a bit. I was going to control his body to strangle you, but I evidently sent the wrong command. Keila said, indeed you did. Adina said, no matter, give me a few minutes and my psionic powers have recovered and I will kill you. Keila said, nah, I'll just kill you now. After saying this, Keila blasted Adina with a psionic blast. Adina fell to the floor, screaming in pain before her mirage disappeared from the room. Was Adina finally dead? This time, Keila would go down to the tunnels herself to make sure of it. But first, she needed to go to the Divine Dimension finding an alien Zetan technology to save Metatron's life. He needed to survive both for the plot and for Keila's sex life. Chapter 2.9 A pretty one-sided fight to death. Later the same day, Keila took a shuttle down Eden to find and confront Adina. Upon entering the tunnels, she immediately realized that Metatron had done a very sloppy job looking for her, as Adina was literally just a few meters away from the tunnel entrance, clearly visible. Adina spoke to her as she entered the tunnel. Adina said, why have you come here? Keila said, isn't that blatantly obvious? I have come to kill you, of course. What else could I possibly have come for? Adina said, it was a rhetorical question. You have made a great mistake coming here. Even with your firewall magic, you stand no chance against my immense psionic powers from this close distance. Keila said, Is that so? Then blast away, Adina. Adina tried blasting Keila, but nothing happened and she felt very strange. Adina said, "What have you done? What happened to my psionic powers?" Keila said, "I turned off the technology. It's just you and me now, fighting physically." Adina said, "An armed and highly trained rebel of the future against a chubby magical priestess from the Bronze Age? Hardly seems fair." Keila said, "Life isn't fair, but to make things slightly more interesting, I left my weapons back in the control center. If you bull run me and manage to get on top, you can potentially suffocate me with your immense mass." Adina said, "Okay, prepare to die, Keila." After saying this, Adina made a bull run towards Keila. In the last second, Keila managed to jump to the side, and Adina, who had the momentum and a complete inability to change direction, continued in straight line, ending up outside the tunnel where she was incinerated by Keila's orbital lasers. Mission complete. Keila, having learned from the latest debacle, avoided her victory dance and instead entered her shuttle back to the Divine Control Center. Chapter 2.10 Metatron's revival is a kind of a disappointment. A few days later, it was time to revive Metatron by using the magical Zetan technologies that Keila found in the Divine Dimension. The only problem for Keila was that the only way to revive Metatron seemed to be to give him a superior godlike power, i.e., a higher tier of mind control technology than she had installed. While this could potentially be a problem, as that technically would make Metatron her boss, Keila was convinced that her captivating personality and beautiful looks would be enough to sway Metatron so that she could still boss him around. Her assistant for the surgical procedure, Samuel, was less than happy. Samuel said, "I don't understand why you're making all this hassle to revive Metatron when I'm here to serve you." "Oh, Mistress Grandmaster Keila," Keila said, "because you were dead set on raping and killing me before I became your boss. Metatron, on the other hand, has always been a nice guy." Samuel said, "Those are good reasons, but I'm still upset over two people having god chips. Our people have stuck with only one god for the last 4,000 years. Keila said, "Well, then it's time to spice things up. On the bright side, the death of Abraham caused your vows of celibacy to be nullified. You are now free to pursue romantic relationships." Samuel said, "Oh, does that mean I can pursue a physical relationship with beautiful Helena of the Gad tribe?" Keila said, "Yes." Samuel said, "Excellent, I'll do that at once. Best of luck with the surgery, Mistress Keila." After saying this, Samuel rushed out of the room to change his clothes to pursue the beautiful Helena of the Gad tribe. Keila realized that she had screwed up, as she now had to perform the brain surgery on Metatron herself, without having skills adapted to surgery. Fortunately, both Keila's and Metatron's plot armour activated, and she managed to perform the complex procedure with Zetan Technologies equipment successfully. And a while later, Metatron opened his eyes. Metatron, blinking slowly, said, "Oh, Mistress Keila, what happened? Did God smite me for breaking my vows of celibacy?" Keila said, "Nah, it wasn't God. Adina killed you with a psionic blast." Metatron said, "That bitch. Where is she now? Keila said. She's dead. The sunburn from the orbital lasers proved too much for her. Metatron said, Good. Let's get back to where we were when she rudely interrupted us. Keila said, But Metatron, are you sure you don't need to rest? You have been dead for 3 days. Metatron said, Well, that's enough time wasted. Let's do it. After that, Keila and Metatron proceeded to have sex. While she was impressed by his dedication to the cause, she was less impressed by his actual performance. What was worse was that she no longer could control him, as he had a higher level mind control chip than she now had. Bummer.